All right, let's dive into one of the biggest what-ifs in all of tech history. What if Nikola Tesla's crazy, brilliant dream of wireless power for the whole world, what if it had actually worked? Let's jump into that alternate history.
Seriously, just take a second and imagine a world with zero power lines. None. No charging cables, no ugly outlets in your wall, just energy, kind of like Wi-Fi, just floating in the air, ready for you to grab with the right gadget. That's the wild reality we're going to step into today.
So, where did an idea this huge even come from? I mean, this wasn't just some sci-fi fantasy. Nope, this was a real vision from the mind of Nikola Tesla himself. And it all kicked off with one, let's just say, incredibly ambitious project. And this was it, the Wardenclyffe Tower. See, Tesla's vision went way beyond just sending messages. He thought he could literally use the planet, the Earth itself, as a giant conductor. He was going to beam electricity to any spot on the globe. No wires. At all. I mean, talk about a world-changing idea, right? But look, the whole dream, the entire thing, it all came down to one single crucial question. Efficiency. If he could send power with, say, 70, 80, 90% of it actually arriving, that's a revolution. It changes everything. But if most of that energy just poof, vanished into the air, well, then it's just a cool science experiment, a niche little gadget, not a world changer.
Okay, so let's play pretend for a minute. Let's say Tesla cracks it. He solves the efficiency problem. The tech works. The first thing that would happen wouldn't be about our cool new gadgets. Nope. The first thing would be a massive shockwave hitting the entire global economy.
And this quote, it just says it all. JP Morgan, the guy funding Tesla, he put his finger on the problem right away. He asked, where can I put the meter? Think about it. If you're just broadcasting power out into the world for anyone to just take, how on earth do you make money? How do you charge for it? That one question put the entire business model of electricity in jeopardy.
So, okay, how would you solve that puzzle? Well, totally new ways of doing business would have to pop up, right? Maybe you don't pay for the power, you pay for the device that receives the power. Or, hey, what about subscription models? Like Netflix, but for electricity. Pay more for a premium power tier. Or, and this is a big one, maybe energy just becomes a public utility run by the government right from the very beginning.
Okay, so once you've completely flipped the economics of energy on its head, the dominoes start to fall. And the next one is even bigger. You're not just changing business, you're literally redrawing the map of the world. You're changing who has the power and even what power means. All of a sudden, that military term power projection becomes, well, literal. A country with the biggest, baddest transmission towers could send electricity to its friends, or just as easily cut it off and plunge an enemy into total darkness. Energy isn't just a commodity anymore. It's a weapon, a direct tool of foreign policy in a way we've never seen. But let's look at the flip side for a second, the utopian dream. I mean, just think about it. Remote villages, entire continents in Africa, Asia, South America, they could have gotten electricity decades earlier. No need to spend billions building a physical grid. This could have kicked industrialization into high gear and completely shifted the global economic balance. Of course, for every bright, sunny utopia, there's a dark, dystopian shadow. Those giant transmission stations, they'd immediately become the #1 target in any war. Armies could power their gear deep behind enemy lines. And get this, drones, submarines, airplanes, they could run almost indefinitely. That doesn't just change a battle, it changes the very nature of warfare for the entire 20th century. Okay, so that's the big picture, the economics, the wars, but let's bring it back down to us. How would this have changed our daily lives? What would the gadgets in our homes look like in this alternate world? It's like we would have gone down a totally different path on the technology tree, right? Think about it. If power is just there, in the air, why would you spend decades trying to invent better and better batteries? Maybe that whole revolution never happens. But in return, imagine having portable computers, powered wirelessly, back in the 1950s, or spaceships that are constantly being beamed power from Earth. It's an absolutely fascinating trade-off to think about. And it's not just our tech. Society itself would be transformed. You could live literally anywhere. You're not tied to the grid anymore. But new problems would crop up. What happens if only rich people can afford the special receivers to get that power? That creates a whole new kind of inequality. And you can bet we'd be having huge, non-stop arguments about the health effects of being bathed in powerful electromagnetic fields 24/7. Okay, it's an amazing world to imagine, right? But now it's time for a reality check. We have to ask the big question. Why Why didn't any of this happen? Why am I still looking for an outlet to charge my phone?
Well, the biggest roadblock then and now is just basic physics. There's this pesky thing called the inverse square law. And all it means is that the farther you get from a source, the weaker it gets really fast. Trying to send power across the ocean would be like trying to hit a target a mile away with a garden hose. Almost none of the power is actually going to get there. And look, that wasn't even the only deal breaker. If you had multiple towers, they'd all interfere with each other, creating chaos. And they probably wreck all radio signals too. Plus, the safety risks? Yeah, those are very real. And as the world needed more and more power, the whole system would just spiral into an uncontrollable, tangled mess.
So here's the real kicker. Even if Tesla had succeeded by his own standards, the most likely result wasn't this wireless utopia. It would have been a cool niche technology. Something for powering remote science stations, or maybe eventually for charging our phones on a countertop. But the heavy-duty wires, they'd still be the backbone of everything.
And maybe that's the biggest lesson from this whole thought experiment. It shows us the hidden genius of our boring old power grid. Those physical wires, they give us control. They give us a way to measure what we use. They give us safety. And those are all things that a purely wireless world would have a really, really hard time figuring out. It's just a powerful reminder, isn't it? For a real revolution to happen, you need the technology, the economics, and the laws of physics to all line up perfectly. And that leaves me with one last question for you. What's the Tesla's dream of our time? What's that seemingly impossible, world-changing idea that we might be underestimating today that could end up defining the next 100 years?